So welcome to Dose of Deborah, Rehab for the Heart. I'm your host, Dr. Deb Howell, and I'm back today with Zissis on the subject matter of self-love and self-care. And so it looks like we're going to possibly talk about relationships today. But Zissis, a little bit about Zissis. He's a HeartMath trainer. He is a heart imagery coach. He's a conscious coach and an energy healer. And he has a YouTube channel where with discussions typically with men and on the divine, you have like a divine roundtable kind of thing going on, and it's called the Elevate Me Academy.
That's right. Yeah. Thank you, Deb.
Yeah, I'm trying to use my memory to repetition and memory. That's wonderful. So hey, I'm happy to see you.
I'm always happy to see you. It's one of the favorite times of the week when we get to discuss for the hour and a half, the half an hour, whatever it ends up being. And whatever comes out feels like it's the right thing. So, we talked kind of preamble a little bit before we started, and he's like, "What do you want to talk about?" And like I said to you, I had this inner calling because I'm watching, as I was saying to you, I'm watching the unspooling of this world. Just when you think you're getting in a worse situation, in a way that all the nonsense, the emotional malice that's happening right now, and being a right, this righteousness about I'm right. And it's taken with such force. And I don't have any political affiliations per se, but I am of the opinion of doing the right thing to some degree, not to the degree that it imposes will on people, or it's done in a way that is manipulative. I think we're fast approaching an age of honesty and transparency. I think this is what we're battling internally. All of us are battling internally. So I thought, what a good way to talk about this, but in a way that affects us within relationships, relationship within yourself, relationship with your family, relationship with your loved one, your beloved, relationship with your friends, relationship with strangers, relationships with other human beings, period. Because I feel like we're getting to a certain period of time right now between, we're in November 17th, 18th, or 18th, I think. And, this grand planetary alignment that's happening on December 21st with the winter solstice. I'm just feeling like there's a lot of emotional vitriol and discontent that's happening. And I think it bears a good reminder to kind of pull back a little bit, get into your neutrality. This is what great magicians do. The power of, you see it here and now, the misdirection, as it were, right? We gotta go back to the center, our center, the center within our being. We got to do the work that's within us. This is how we change the world. Because if you express this emotional content that gets somebody else fired up, and they in turn have this exponential growth, what have you done? And again, both sides, Republicans, Democrats, whatever you want to, whatever political affiliation. I've always preached a more grounded perspective on love and righteousness, but not to the point where don't step outside your being. As you know, HeartMath. When we practice our HeartMath practices, we affect the environment, our social imprint around us, right? Just like if we have negative emotions, same thing happens there as well. So if you can't get into a positive emotion with positive, then default to a state of neutrality. Yeah.
Okay, so there's a lot there.
Let's knock all that now, Deb.
There's a lot there. Okay. So,
Where do you want to start? Where do you?
where do I want to start? You know, one of the things, I'll just start with the thing that you said in the beginning was about being right. You know, this thing about being right, because there's a lot of things up now. Everything is up and there's unrest.
Yeah.
Right? And the this point in time where things are so polarized, right? That to stay in one's corner, that this is the way, I'm right, this is an absolute, versus the rigidness of of just having even an inkling of like listening. Like, can we listen outside of the like through the noise, right? Because it's so incredibly noisy. And I'll say that the noise is not only on the external, but internally. When we are stressed, the system is noisy. All right. So, and we don't consciously recognize this, but this is something that can can show up in sort of like a biofeedback in any, it can be measured, right? This staticky kind of incoherent state, right? And especially with HeartMath, there are tools that can show us this kind of thing. So, but the thing about when you said being right, I remember just a couple of months ago having this conversation about being right or real. Like, so, and dropping into what real is, and I'm talking about truth. Okay. So people can feel that they're being really like right, and this is the truth for them. But it's a truth that comes from a perspective that we've created mentally. We have this construct, and a lot of it is from our conditioning, what we've learned, our beliefs, all of this. So it's kind of this place that we've arrived at over time. And yet the truth is within the heart. When we learn to get quiet, to pause, because the heart doesn't need to speak loud. It's loving nature. It's very powerful nature, but oftentimes it's this hint. It's subtle. It's a whisper. It's a hunch. It's a that, right? And in order to hear that, we got to have a bit of quiet, tuning in. And that's why some of these aspects of prayer and meditation allow us to be quiet for a bit, you know. And but right now everything is so noisy, and and I recently had a situation where I had the immediacy of contrast with this whole election thing, where here's the outcome for the presidency, and here's someone who's watching one news station, and then right in the very next patient I saw was watching another news station, and they were in contrast to each other. And when you say neutral for me in that moment was to, how could I, the conversation that I kept, that was real, that was in my heart to say for both situations and both parties, was to acknowledge that we are going through some serious times right now, right? And that resonated as truth for me, and truth for both parties, where it wasn't for me to like go into one perspective or the other, but it was really to hold a perspective, that we have perspectives, we have lived experiences, you know, that play into how we feel. And to deny what anybody feels will automatically set up for guarding and resistance to feel that we're not being heard, or we're not validating the pain that we feel or what we've been through, so it's important that we are able to find a way to dialogue on a level that comes from only here, and it drops into a place that we can make some space, right? Some space to have a conversation.
Because in the end, the outcome, regardless of the election, regardless of being right, it is about a sense of kindness to each other as a human race. Right? And it's a distraction. All of this to me is a distraction. It's a stage that's set on this dramatic play that's being played out to polarize the world. And that in itself, for me, is a distraction, right? Because the moment you're polarized in any emotion, usually with the election, it's been negative emotions. How dare they do this, and how dare they think like this, and how they did this and they did this. These are polarized emotions. While having the much higher perspective is saying, I understand this, I understand why this is happening, and I just choose love. I choose love for both, right? That's the higher perspective in my view. So what happens when that happens? Well, with enough people choosing that, we all consolidate under those powerful emotions, that powerful way of being, that it does change the world. Regardless of what's happening, the highest good is going to happen in the world when enough humans choose that or make that choice. Right?
Love. So we're speaking on making a choice to love. So my thing about what love feels like, what it feels like in us, because a lot of, and I can say this based on what I've heard and experienced, but I've also had to grow into a deeper understanding. So love that can feel like pain, feel like guarding, feel like, I've been hurt, violated, betrayed, not gonna happen again, not gonna do it again, right? That kind of thing that leads us to put walls and barriers and defenses against anything that can possibly hurt us in the name of love, right? And yet that is a perspective based on survival.
Yeah.
That's instinctive, right? However, when even bringing up the whole subject of relationships, right, and this whole unrest, we first, solving the world's issues. I mean, that's very broad. That's very, I mean, the numbers are so large that we got to look at the individual that moves in the different spaces, right? So we have to start with ourselves. With that relationship, we first have to recognize love within us, a love that keeps us, allows us to be open, allows us to take a deep breath, allows us to allow for vulnerability and know and feel the unrest, the uncertainty, and kind of be able to hang out there, right? In a way that is trusting, yet not because some of this can sound like, oh yeah, that's stupid, like that's dangerous, that's no, I'm talking about a level of sensitivity that has that tunes us in, right? That really has us more acutely aware of where we are at any point in time, at any moment. Just like when I was in those two different rooms, I was acutely aware of the emotions of both of my patients.
Right.
And to say that one person is right over the other person, that's not my place. And yet, even within myself, to recognize if any of that wants to come up for me, to feel like, yeah, yay for anything. and that kind of way of allowing myself to feel what I feel, but recognize that, hey, there's people hurting, people who I have no idea what they might have lived through, what experiences they might have had. And so, this way of being and loving and dropping in, and that relationship that we have to ourselves allows us to step into the world with others who have not yet done that work, right? And somehow, like you and I having this conversation, is to make it possible for others to begin that process.
Right. And so, as we become more polarized, I personally choose the middle path, the path of neutrality. I choose to protect my way of being, especially if people are in their extreme emotions or myopic view of the world, or dysfunctional in the way that they move. And that it feels like judgment, but I'm not judging. I mean, people are entitled to their experiences. What I'm saying is I'm protective of that experience within my experience. Don't drag me into this experience with you, right? I choose to root in love, and that's not in my, if it's not in my harmonic resonance with your field, I will be appreciative of your view. I will be kind. I will be compassionate. I will show you grace, but don't expect any validation, or don't expect to be like chummy with me in that way, because ultimately my way of being and your way of being are two different things, right? And it takes, I what I learned from this is that person's pain, that person's point of view, which I appreciate, and vice versa. I would hope they would say, well, isn't that interesting in the way that Zissis is behaving? I find it curious, or I find it like, why does he think like that? Hopefully there can be a provocation of thought that maybe directs them to something else. I don't know what that is. I'm not here to influence anybody. They're there to experience and what they feel they need to experience. Because ultimately, like me, I'm evolving. Every experience I encounter makes me makes me makes me think, for sure. And depending on that level of triggering that happens with me, depending on the work that I've done on my shadow side, my wounding and trauma, it will be commensurate with that, that pain, as it were, that emotional reaction, right? So I know that I've done enough work that, I've had, feels like I've had many dark nights of the soul right now, much like this world is experiencing collectively right now. I think we are collectively in a dark night of the soul, and the only way you can get through that is through compassion. The only way you can get through that is to, um, you know, lay witness to what's happening, and and just be compassionate with what's going on.
Yeah, so choosing to evolve. I mean, we're aging. Doesn't mean we're evolving. But we are, I mean, to grow, to grow in knowledge, to grow in awareness, to grow in love with ourselves, because I feel that, and you use the word provoke and trigger. So provocation and trigger can produce this, right, for people, or it can produce this mean,
Yeah.
open. Like all of a sudden it's like, ooh, tag, you're it. Oh, right. Oh,
Yeah.
ugh, ugh, so right. And or that's when we go in. But that same kind of provocation trigger can produce an outward thing where there's behaviors that look like violence, that look like projection, right? That look like, man, you're my problem, right? Outside of us. So how we look at the opportunity at hand means that we have to take a moment to know that we have a moment that we can do
Yeah.
such a thing, and it comes through our breath.
Yeah.
It really is about the breath. And when we're working with the heart and we're working with accessing the heart, it is through the recognition of the breath that we have in the moment that will help us pause. And that pause shifts something that could be reactive and instinctive, survival, to more of a response, right? Where, okay, now we can bring some thoughtfulness, curiosity to it, you know. So that little window, that that is what, if we can honestly begin there with a breath, a breath. I mean, as simple as that may sound, or as like, if anyone wants to say it's more than that, well, it begins, it's like that first step, right? That first step is to take a breath and connect with that breath, because that is the access. That's where you access, right? And so for all that's going on right now and this relationship, when we're outside of ourselves wanting to get answers and it's all outside of ourselves, that is limiting. That's limiting. And you can gather information. Matter of fact, the external world reflects back to us, hey, what we
But
need to work on.
vice versa, the internal world reflects on the external world.
Yeah, so it's a mirror. It's this mirror, right? And so even with science, we're looking at even mirror neurons and all that, how things operate when one part is impaired, and then we bring in a way to look and see the motion, see it reflecting back. So this is life, and we get to be a presence to one another, to help each other to heal, and to
Right.
help each other to connect to the things that are unresolved, those deeper emotions, those deeper fears, those things that we don't realize that are embodied in us. And our nervous system is really playing out this
Yeah.
narrative. Yeah.
That's the best thing that anyone can do, is put a smile on someone's face in this day. I'm watching I don't watch, I stopped watching television a long, long time ago. But once in a while I get caught like with little snippets of, within social media. And really I need to stop looking at social media too. But once in a while I see these incredibly, I don't know how to describe them, because I don't think there's even words. Like, I'm going to say violent, but that doesn't even feel the depth of what I'm feeling when I'm watching this, how we treat each other as human beings. I was watching this clip of this guy just taking um, a punch, like out of nowhere. This guy wasn't ready. He was minding his own business. He punched him hard, dropped on the ground. I felt it. I felt it. And I thought to myself, really? Is this where we're going as a humanity? Instead of being a little bit more understanding, opening up a dialogue, instead of releasing those you know, emotional aspects of our beings, which incidentally doesn't serve anyone except the people that ultimately provide the narrative of what we need to do as a collective. My narrative as a collective is all of us, all human beings need to hold hands and sing kumbaya, as far as I'm concerned, and saying, you know what, love here. That's what we need to do. And I guarantee you our reality will change instantly.
Mhm.
As Pollyannish as this may sound, I'm convinced but what was the saying? I think it was like 1% in meditation, because the meditation is a higher frequency of vibration, right? 1% of the planet in meditation for a certain period of time shifts consciousness for the whole world. And that's some of the work that HeartMath is following right now, and is encouraging other companies, other organizations to really get into the heart space in whatever manner they feel is correct for them, right?
Right. Yeah, and you know, you said release, and people release, they take things out on other people. There's a punch, right?
That's, that's directed at them. It's
Right,
this inner turmoil that's happening within them.
right. So the energy. So when we look at this life as we're living energy and we're living out an expression.
Yeah.
It's important that we see this, and I'll say this, I and it has to do with punch, because you just made me remember this fella I had met. We were in a group of a few people, and I don't know how the conversation came to be, or anyway, he ended up saying that he was a white supremacist. Okay. This gentleman said he was. I know what it was. It was about, can people change? Right? And he happened to say yes. And he says, and this is why. And when he said that he's a white supremacist, we were all kind of like, okay. And because it was a mixed group, I mean, it was a mixed group of folks. And I got really curious. I was like, whoa, this is really courageous, really bold, and really vulnerable. And I'm like, I want to know what you got to say. So what happened? And basically, he was in a fight, got into a fight with this guy, with this a black gentleman, right? And it got to the point where the gentleman could have killed him. Like it got that bad, and then he pulled off. He just, you know, and something shifted in this man to see this guy in a different way, because he's like, why didn't he hurt me? Why didn't he had a chance? And knowing what he had done, right, and what he thought he might have done if it was reversed, it gave him pause to reflect on his own decisions, prior decisions, based on this recent momentary decision that this guy made, that where's the value in hurting this man? He's already down. And what do I don't have anything to prove, and I'm not here looking to kill him. So whatever, that whole dialogue, that process, but it shifted that fella's perspective, and he was able to begin a conversation with this guy and actually start to learn more about a group of people, a culture, and ethnicity, but it start to heal himself, because there was a conflict in that moment, the physical conflict that didn't result in, end of life situation, but gave a renewed view on life and a rebirthing on like, wait a second. And it was beautiful. It was really, I mean, they were silent. We were, we were silent to listen because he was in his heart to tell the story. It was significant for him. And I think it's something like that that interrupted a pattern. It interrupted a belief, right? But it took that disruption, because there, a lot of time we need to have some kind of disruption, internally disrupt a belief system, internally disrupt patterns. And we can be in a state of unrest, but in a state that is a stagnant state, right? Until we like go in there and like get a little bit of thing going on, right? A little wrestling going on, our own inner turmoil. Yeah, only to kind of watch it, so we can act it out, play it out, be out, but that we're not physically taking out on somebody else, but it is an energetic expression, because there's a real charge to it. There is emotional charge, and there is a charge, a feeling, and typically it's a cumulative thing, right? And then we just kind of stuff it, pack it. And so if you can only imagine how much energy is in there, we're part of nature. Think about tornadoes and hurricanes, and just think about the
Absolutely.
right.
Absolutely.
So
I mean,
yeah.
the other perspective I hold too, as you were talking about that, I was thinking, do you know the story of Maria Nambu?
No.
I'm gonna have to
Nambu.
Nambu, yeah, Maria
Mhm.
Nambu. Um, I had the very distinct pleasure, and it is a very distinct pleasure meeting this lady. Um, I, I, I I jokingly say she's the one of the living saints I've met in this life, and I truly believe she is, in my view. After you listen to her story and what she's been through, and how she continually leads her life, I believe she's in her early 70s now. Sorry, Maria, I didn't mean to, but she looks amazing. First of all, for her age, she's an incredible conversationalist. She's rich with experience. I'll just tell you a little snippet, but she has 3 books out that people can go out and look at her experiences. She was a young orphan girl in Tanzania, and she was physically and sexually raped for, I think she was in her teens before she escaped the foster home. She said to us at the dinner, around 6 years old, in order to escape the atrocity of what she was going, the emotional um, disconnection of what she was going through, she snuck out a window barefoot and walked into the village. And she saw 3 older ladies around the fire, and they were dancing. And this brought to her such elation and allowed her to release all that was. And dance for her was the way she started to expressing herself. So she began to really connect with her inner being and dance, and managed to escape the convent. She has an incredible story. She gets to New York, uh, connects with, uh, lives her life in the way she does, gets married, has kids, all the stuff that comes with marriage and all that dysfunctional aspect of what she does. But at this point in time, for I think like within her mid 50s to late 50s, she had the honor of uh, talking and bestowing certain art, because she collected a lot of African art, into the Alex Haley Foundation. So she had a lot of connections to that. But she goes throughout the U.S. talk about her experiences, right? And she told me at that dinner party of a situation where she was still in the deep south, and still to this day the degree of racism that happens in an overt way, not in a very, you know direct way. And of all people, for her to feel like righteous and to feel like, how dare they treat me this way? Maria always chose a pacifist way. And that's why I feel she's like a living saint. She was always in elegance and grace, and would always teach love and preach love. And that's how she started converting everyone she spoke to, right? And it's an incredible story. I encourage people to, and maybe what I'll do is I'll, I'll see if I can find a few links, because I think it's worthy of people to look at her story and see what an incredible leader she is in teaching and leading through love.
Mm-hmm.
So being the leader, showing and demonstrating, regardless of all the atrocities that you've been through, regardless of what God has given you, to say, you know what, you of all people have this way to act. Take your sword of righteousness and start cutting people's heads off, because, people do that a lot. I see a lot of light workers or people that are enlightened, and the moment that they have this truth, they hold onto it with severe meaning and consequence. It's like, thou shalt believe in this truth, and if you don't, you are admonished. There's no compassion, there's no kindness, there's no gentleness. We need to get away from all that, quite frankly. It's irrelevant. I don't care what your truth brings, but if it brings chaos, I don't want any part of it.
And it's, it's really through that, because to be spiritual, purely spiritual in that sense that we label spiritual, right, is, where's the other part that integrates us to the ground, like grounds us, right? So we're this universal awareness, we still have Mother Earth here, right? So the fullness of being present, the fullness of recognizing what is, all that is around us, in us, through us, is that we are love. Love flows through us. Love is around us. And to allow ourselves to kind of get into the release ourselves into the field, right? Yeah. To which is in its sense a sense, right? Because I'm a physical therapist, and I recognize where this physical sense, all the tangibleness of life teaches us, but it's a bridge into the intangible, which is a sense. And so that sense is within, right? And
so sorry for interrupting, Deb, okay, but your relationship with your patients, right? Because you come at it knowing the little that I know about you, you come in with compassion and love, without judgment. You're completely connected with that individual, right? And in doing so, you create miracles, right? Now they can be construed as miracles, but you've told me some amazing stories with individuals that were under your care. I think that's the missing piece. This is what I'm trying to get at. It's when we connect and have the intention of love, because I care about you, your well-being is my well-being, right? It's directly connected. This illusion of separateness does not exist at all.
Exactly. Yeah. And the sincerity of care, it's and I'm as more and more of these experiences come to be, it's that this place, it's the place that we hold within ourselves and around ourselves, to recognize we're in it, is to show up and connect. And for those people who don't recognize what's within themselves, to experience what is to unfold, because I may know enough information, right, that I can work with, but I don't have the full picture. Right. And the patient may know enough of a situation but still doesn't have the full picture of what is going to play out in that time. Because the presence, and honestly, this is truly something that keeps unfolding for me, as I am in awe at some of the things that happen when I least expect it. Least expected. And that's the beauty of the uncertainty through love, because the intelligence held within that resonant frequency of love is beyond what we can conceptually even like.
Yes.
I mean, it is so far beyond rational, like trying to make sense of it, to this whatever is needed. And so for the concreteness of and the validation of what I've experienced and what I've been able to facilitate for patients, and I have a real quick, because I know you got to go shortly. This week alone, I had a lady still kind of exploring herself now with all this information coming. And it was a week ago we went through this process, this really just breathing exercise. And and in that moment she had some in like this kind of revelation, right? So it was just a presence that was really like wow for her. And then but that started something in her. Something happened, right? That over the weekend things happened, things changed. Well, all of a sudden, let me tell you, her history, her life lived experience has been wow. Like you talk about trapped trauma, holy moly, all starting to come out, memories coming back. I mean, stuff that she didn't even like, and so, but not in a way that she's afraid. She's feeling like there's a strength, there's a life to it, because there's love in it, and love is strength. Love provides stability. Love, yeah, and it's like it is. I'm like, I'm just still holding space for her to keep like discovering herself, and I'm hands off. I'm like, whoa, man, this is like, this is big, but it's powerful, because now her purpose is coming to life, and she's feeling it. She's feeling that whole thing. So, you know.
Well, and that's your loving presence. That's your loving intention in the healing work that you do, right? And what a beautiful thing to have slowly uncover as we go through traumas. Well, that's part of the issue of bearing the wisdom of the heart, because we feel. I mean, I experienced it myself, and slowly uncovering it, or having the courage to say, this is the direction I need to go, because there is no other direction. Everything else becomes meaningless in that way. And as you begin to uncover that, you begin to lead a purposeful life. That's the reward, right? You begin to have meaningful connections with other human beings. They don't become projections of the wounding and the trauma that you experience it, because that's what life does. They say, you're not complete, you're not whole. Here's a person in front of you that is going to mirror what you need to work on. Good luck.
Right. Yeah, and we separate, or we feel threatened. And so here in all this kind of work, we learn to trust. We're learning to trust ourselves, and we're learning to, trust, the moments that are unfold before us. So, yeah, it's
allow it to be. I mean, part of the hardest practice you could do, I've practicing this, and it's really hard. It's when you feel triggered, wounded, traumatized in some way, that someone's inflicting some pain on you, and like, oh my God, I can't endure this. And you have one of two things: you can run away, you can lash out. Hold still, bring those heart walls down, hold still, be conscious of where you are, connect with your breath, as you say, and begin to radiate love. Begin to turn that around and see what happens in the conversation, right? You're not buying into that illusion anymore. When you stop doing that, and that's the hardest work to do. I'll be the first one to tell you that, but being conscious of it, that you are stuck in this particular cycle, that's a big thing to get out of. And when you understand that and start working with that understanding, as you said, holy moly, man, it's just,
it's beyond anything that I could. Yeah. So I am, so everything is always like new and unpredictable. And I'm like, okay. Okay.
or it's
Okay.
exactly what it's intended to be.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, all of that too. So for folks to want to connect with you, because we're gonna, have more conversations, but just, this hopefully folks will have found something in here that begins to open your curiosity, at least pique your interest. And if you'd like to connect with Zissis, where can you be found?
I have an Instagram page. It's called The Wise One. So all lowercase, the dot WIZE1, number one, Wise One. And also my YouTube page, Elevate Me Academy. And I usually put videos there every week. And I will be hosting these videos there now, which I've got, I think we're at 4th week or 5th week now, which is incredible when I stop to think about it. That these conversations have been a real blessing. Thank you. Thank you, Deb.
Yeah, for me too. And hopefully for folks who are listening, honestly. So if anyone would like to connect with me, you can find me on Facebook, Dr. Deb Howell. I have podcast, Dose of Deborah, Rehab for the Heart. And also you can check out my website, victoryinaction.com. So the blessings to you. Keep well.
We will see you next.
Yeah, so we will pick up again, okay? And
absolutely, we'll pick up.
Okay. Okay. So let me say ta-ta. Hold on.